G'day guys, so I've been working on my 3D voxel terrain a bit more, and you can see I've added these ramps. It looks a lot smoother. I'll show you how it compares here is it without the ramps. You can see just a normal old blocky terrain, and when I add the ramps you'll see it'll generate on all these air spots in the corners, sort of where there's a block on one side and air on the other, it'll generate one of these ramps. Now there's still a bit more to do. I would probably have another one which goes here, which is sort of a weird, I don't know what you call that shape. And it would work out something to put in these cornery spots. But it's actually pretty simple, so I'll show you guys how I did it. So back at the start now, as we were at the end of the last video. Now the first big thing I need to do for this is change the way we're actually storing each block. So every block right now in this big voxel 3D array is just an enum. It's just basically an integer. So you can see here when we, let's see, in world we are going get block. We're filling it up with this block type air, block type dirt, block type air, and it's just this single enum right here, which is great because we don't want lots of data being stored in each block. This one is just, hey, I'm a 0, I'm a 1, I'm a 1, I'm a 0. Nice and simple. But for ramps, ramps can be like pointing this way, pointing the other way, pointing the other way. There's 4 different directions. So I need to have a rotation variable. One way around that is I could just here have like ramp north and a ramp south, which would be great if there was just ramps, but I probably want to have a whole bunch of custom blocks later down the track, and I don't want to have to make 4 for each one. So what we're going to actually do, we're going to actually use this block class, and this block will now be what goes in here. And so what we'll have is we'll have this guy will be the block, and we will actually extend it. So here's my block. I'm going to just duplicate that, and we'll make another one called air. And for air, and what we'll do, well, here we'll make a folder for blocks, put in air, put in blocks. And so air is going to extend block. So air is basically one type of block. And so it doesn't need this because that's already part of block, which is the higher level of air. And then what we'll do is we'll go to chunk, and basically this big function here, which tells it how to draw a block, that's going to get moved to block. So I'll just copy it for now. I won't delete it. So I'll copy that and put it in here. And since I've put it in block, none of these functions exist, so it's going to complain for a bit. Since I put this in block, it now also exists in air. And then what we'll do basically for air, we will just take this guy and it will just do nothing basically. And then we'll make our ramp one. So I'll duplicate the air one this time, and we'll call this one ramp. And so my ramp is going to extend block once again. I don't know why I retyped that. It's going to be called ramp, and we'll just have to write the script, which will be sort of similar to this one. It just, the top will be slanted, it'll be missing one side, and 2 of the sides will be single triangles. Where is it? And so we'll put that there, and it just needs, this one needs to have this one variable rotation, and we'll just, it's going to be a basic integer. Let's call it an integer. So 0, I think, will be east, 1 will be north, 2 will be west, 3 will be south, because you can only rotate 90 degrees. And so it's very easy to store. It doesn't take up too much memory. I'm not even sure if there's a smaller integer we can use, since we only need to count to 3. But this is good for now. And so now it's not going to, like, the ramps will take up one more bit of memory, but everything else should be the same. And we might have to add some more variables later, so this gives us that ability, but we do have to remember to keep that really low because every chunk is 16 times 16 times 16. It really adds up. Okay, so what we'll do first, we'll forget about the ramps. Why are you complaining, class name ramp? Oh, everything's screwing up just because block is so screwy. So what we're going to do, before we start looking on the ramp, we'll change everything so that it's done with these classes instead of just using the block type. So what we need to do is this guy, basically we're going to just talk back to the chunk. So this guy needs to know the chunk. And what we'll do is we'll just pass through the chunk, which is a chunk. And then for each of these, we'll just go chunk dot. So I thought about sort of making one big object to hold all the mesh data and then passing it back. But this is a lot simpler. What's your problem here? Oh, it doesn't. I need to actually make that type. Class name chunk. And then now I can say, hey, make sure it's the chunk type. All right, so that's all happy. Now going one level up to the chunk, what we're going to do is, I'll be lazy. I won't delete all this stuff for now. We'll just put a return here. And what we'll do is just go blocks, pos.x, pos.y, pos.z. Oops, sorry, that's not how it works. It's like that. And for that one, we'll go gen cube mesh, and we'll give it the chunk, and we'll give it this position. And I've just realized I'm using a vector 3 here. Let's leave it for now. So I'm just not sure vector 3 for talking. These should be integers going in here, not floats, which is what is in a vector 3. Let's leave it. All right, so now if I try and run it, it won't work because I'll be running this .gen cube mesh on what is in blocks right now, which right now the only thing in there is an enum. So what we need to do is go to world, and world is telling it what to put in there in the start. So what we need to do is just say, hey, instead of putting this enum, put an air type block. And if this was any other language, I would just say put in like a new air or something like that, or air.new. What we need to do is have all the prototypes preloaded, just like we did with the chunk. So we'll go var block prototypes equals, and what I'll do, I'll keep them in an array, and I'll order them in this order, so I can still use a block type. So we're going to go air dirt, and let's add it now, ramp. So it's basically 0, 1, 2. So air dirt and ramp. So let's go, and let's see, I can just drag it from here. So air first. So we're going preload, and this will just keep an instance of that in the memory, so we can grab it and make a copy of it anytime we like. Air dirt ramp. Why don't you like that? Oh, not dirt, sorry. Block. Maybe I should change that to dirt. I guess ramp maybe has an error in it. Yes. So it's complaining because this one, let's just copy this from block. Same thing for air. All right, so now everything is compiling. Okay, so now what I can do, yep, that's happy now, is here, instead of going block type dirt, or what was this before? This was air. So what we return is block prototypes block type dot air. And I could just put a 0 in there, but this is much more readable. All right, so it's these two are air, so let's go over those. This one is dirt. Oops, I put in 2 returns. Okay, now this probably won't work because it's a big change we've made. Let's test it though. And one thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm only testing with like 1, 1, 1. So if something goes wrong, because it'll just try and build it, and if there's an error on every single one, it'll take forever. So let's 1, 1, 1. Let's even make it a chunk size of 8, just to make it quicker if I make any mistakes. Go. So what we're trying to do is run the gen cube mesh on a nil. So that means it's trying to run it on like an empty something. So chunk 71. Oh, okay. Invalid access to property. So on key 1. So basically here we're saying dirt, which is a 1 in the block prototypes. These are not loaded yet. It's because we're working in the editor. We're using a tool. It's not loaded properly yet. We do have to just run a reload current project. This happens all the bloody time. All right. Chunk 159. Oh, yes. Okay. So what we can actually do here is just go, is it air? And that'll work now. All right. There's probably a few other little things like that. I could do a search, but let's be lazy. Let's just run the thing and see what happens. Oh, I'm a complete idiot. Sorry, guys. I led you astray for a second there. Go back to world. Go back to get block. We can't just put the prototype in there. We have to make a new instance of it. And that's why this is failing because it's just calling it on like the prototype, like the static version of it. So that should fix that. Let's give that a go. Nope. All right, clear my errors, run it again. All right, so we're doing a comparison somewhere between an object and an int. Chunks at 182. Oh yeah, so just where we're doing this comparison. So once again, we can just go if the block is air, if the block is air, if the block is air. All right, let's give that a go. Nope. It's getting further. Okay, so it's not actually throwing any errors, but it's also not rendering anything. So you can see all the positions that are going through fine, so that's not an issue. Let's go back and delete that print. Okay, so we're sending the thing through to generate the mesh. Let's jump in here and make sure it's doing block meshes. So let's just print at the end. Let's just print the pos. So if I still get the pos, then it's working. Okay, so I'm generating, but it's never saying pos, which means, what does it mean? Is it treating everything as air? Print I'm air. I get the feeling everything's in air. Yes. Oh no, only 35. What? So this one's working. It's saying I'm an air. Let's go back to my basic block. Print I'm a dirt. Clear. Generate. No, okay, so it is doing the dirts. Oh, my bad. I put that inside this one. All right. Are these ones not running? Print top is air. And let's get rid of the I'm a dirts and I'm an airs. All right, it could be the block is air function is not working properly is what I'm thinking right now. Yes, okay, so this one is basically always returning false. It's not working properly. So let's go back to block is air. So one thing I'm going to do is just change this. So just the default is, hey, just return. Because that's basically what that last bit was doing anyway. So there was one thing I was going to add anyway, which is a bit of an ugly way to do it. I'm going to add one more function. And it's just going to be get block type. And the reason is, technically, air is a block as well. So if I say, is it a block and it's air, it will say yes, because it's a sort of a subclass of dirt, so of block. So ramp is also a block, air is also a block, but a block is not air, if you know what I mean. So what I'm going to do is mostly rely on this. I was going to add this later, but let's just do it like this. So we're not going to rely on talking directly to the class name. We're going to go return. So this guy is block type dot dirt. So that's my normal block. Air, he's going to return his block type dot air. And ramp is going to return that he is a block type dot ramp. And what we'll do is rely on that. So let's see if that is going to work properly. Block type dot air. So get block type. And see, now we're getting trues and falses. So we are getting differences now. So yeah, I think this is the problem. So let's just stop using this one here and let's use this comparison instead. And we'll do the same thing here. And the same thing here. And yes, that's fixed it, but we've still got some problem there. Did I forget to put a return in there? So now we're all working. Let's make sure we can go back to our normal size. Yep, everything's working beautifully again with the new system. So now, finally, we can add our ramps. Now let's go have a look at our ramp script. We'll grab the, we'll copy the block one for now because it's going to be most similar to that one. Okay. And let's bring up paint. So we're going to have, so right now all our blocks are like this. Bop, bop, bop. Oh, I'm drawing this badly. Bam, bam. Yeah, that's right. Pretty badly done, but yeah. And so we've got the top, the sides, the back, all made into triangles like that. What we want to do now is I want to make one like this. Like that. And so we've got up is Y, that way is X, that way is Z. And I'm going to have them pointing to the east because what I'm going to do is I'm only going to make it once and then I'm going to rotate it. And the rotation is going to be sort of like that is 0 and then we go around the angle like that. So we're going to do the basic one pointing to the east, so along the X. And so first we need to do our top face. And so once again, we're going to go clockwise. So we're going to start at the back left, go clockwise. So this one is positive on Y, negative on X, negative on Z. So first one, the top is positive on Y, negative on X, negative on Z. So it's the same. The next one, positive on X. So positive, negative, negative. Positive, negative, negative. And then the next one is going to go here. So it's going to be positive, negative, positive, positive, negative, positive. And then the final one is going to be negative on X, positive Y, positive Z. So negative, positive, positive, negative, positive, positive. And so that should work. And what I'll do is I'll do a quick test. Let's make one ramp. What I'll do is I'll work out, let's say this square here. So what I'll do is I'll just find what position that is. The quick dumb way. I'll make a node 3D and I'll just move it to there. So I'm going to put it, actually I'm going to put it right here. Okay, so what's our position? So that's going to be, whoops, 4, 17, 2. What? Whoops, 17. So 4, 17, 2. We're going to put a ramp there. 4, 17, 2. And so what I'll do is I'll just do a little cheat. When we go get block, if pos equals vector 3i 4, 17, 2, return, and we'll return a ramp. Why are you complaining? Vector 3i. All right. And yep, so it's a block, and you can see the top is the ramp. It's going downways, and the other sides are all the same. So we need to fix the other sides, but that has worked perfectly. Now the texture is a little bit stretched, so we've got to decide if we're happy with that or if we want to make a slightly longer texture for those top ones. I'm not going to care about that right now. It's only like what is it? It's like 30 or 40% stretched. Now for the sides, all I need to do is delete these triangles, but that'll be a bit tricky. So right now, all our code is based around every face being made of 2 triangles, 4 vertices, 2 triangles. So that's going to be a little change we've got to make now as well. The east one is the easiest one. We're just going to delete that. So let's do that one first. Get the easy crap out of the way first. So the east one is just, you don't exist anymore. And we can test that. Yeah, the east is gone. That one's going to be the same. So it's just these 2 sides now. Now, what's going to happen is if I just go to this one, I can't just delete one because this add UVs and add tries both look at 4 by default. So what I'm going to do, I could just do the triangles manually here. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make 2 new methods. I'm going to make one for doing quads, which is basically going to be this try now, which sounds a bit weird, but let's do it anyway. So let's go back to the chunk. And I've got this add tries. We're going to change that. I'll keep the old one for now. We're going to call it add a quad. And so this is just going to be add indices for a face of 2 triangles. So that's basically what this one does right now. and I'll make another one for adding a triangle. And then later on, if I'm adding more complicated ones, I might make one that just does n amount. And what I'm going to do, we're not going to rely on face count anymore, because face count, once again, it relies on this multiplied by 4 every time we're adding 4 vertices at a time. That's not going to work because we're only adding 3 now. So what we're going to do instead of finding the current indice by going basically face count times 4, we're just going to do it an easier way. We're just going to go the length of vertices, which is how many vertices we've got now, and I'm actually going to go minus 4. Because the problem is, we've just added 4 new vertices, and I want to go the first one of those to be number 0. So let's just say we added 0, 1, 2, 3. We just added those vertices. If I go, what's the len? It's going to give me a length of 4. And so when I say give me the 0th one, it'll give me that one. So we go minus 4. When I say 0, it'll give me this one, and we can go 0, 1, 2. Keep this the same as always. Hopefully that made sense. Basically, we're just going to swap this out. And we won't worry about face count. Face count is not something we're going to use anymore. It only really works with the basic cubes. So we'll delete that from here and we'll phase it out. And so now that one will do what this one does without needing face count. And let's make one for adding tries. Func add try. And so this will do pretty much the same thing, but it'll only grab those last 3. And so we only minus 3. So if we just added only 3 vertices, we can run this one. And let's put a little deprecated. I'll be professional. All right, so now what we do, we go back to our ramp. And so for this one, we've added a quad. You know what we should do? Before I go and add it all here, let's make sure it works on the normal blocks. So what we'll do is for each of these, we'll just add quad. Now there's one other thing. Since we're not using face count anymore, let's make sure that anywhere that's being used for anything, we ignore it. So we'll leave that there for now. So we're not going to reset it. Leave that there for now. But this is the real thing which uses it. So this one checks, hey, if we didn't have any faces, don't even draw this chunk. And yeah, we'll just go, instead of that, if the length of vertices is greater than 0. So now we don't need face count at all. Let's quickly just change all these in ramp as well. And let's see if we broke anything. And we didn't break anything. We are now using the new system. And it's all working as normal. Beautiful. All right, so now let's make these triangles. And so all I would do for the south side, let's be lazy. I won't even work out which one it is. Add a try and let's see if that worked. Oh, that didn't work. The UVs is breaking it. So we need to do the UVs first. So let's go back to our chunk. Where's our add UV? So add UVs is just like this, and let's just add try UVs. And then we'll just delete that last boy. So what I might do in the future is actually, because I might have things later that have like 5, 6, 7, 10, we might make one of these for each of these, which just as a number of faces you just added, or number of tries we just added. But let's keep it dumb for now. And we'll just go add try UVs and see if that fixed it. And it did. But we can see I deleted the wrong guy. So let's put this guy back in. Let's put this guy back out. I really should just work out which one it is, but I'm feeling lazy. So that was wrong. This is such a lazy way to do it. And that's it. Looks a bit stretched. Let's play with that UVs and make sure, I want to make sure it's sort of still projecting it as a square rather than the way I've done it just now. So go back to add try UVs and let's try and get rid of this one. Once again, I'm being lazy. I'm not really doing the math. That didn't seem to make any difference. Try that one instead. All right, yes. So that's obviously, it should have a thing going down this way, but you can see how that's projected that way. What I would want to do now is actually For this side, we should have a special texture for it, but the texture is being projected correctly. So good, we fixed that. Let's do it with the other side. So that was south. Let's do the north. And let's just try once again, add try UVs, and let's see if we guess the right one. We did not. Nope. There we go. So now we have a ramp. Let's do a little trick. Let's just go and tell it when we generate a block. Anything that was dirt before, let's make it a ramp. Let's see what happens if we've got heaps of ramps. And you can see from one side it looks okay, but because we've got these sort of sides, that's going to cause a problem. So this one that's missing is actually the block next door. So we need to work out something for that, but we are making ramps all right. What I wanted to be able to do now is rotate them. And to do that, what we're going to do, we're going to pick a point in the middle, and this guy is going to get moved to here. This guy's going to get moved to here. This one moved to here. And so we need to put in a little script to do that. So the way we do that is, and I'm going to hide it down here actually. And I'm just going to drop this one in. So I had to play around with a bit to get this one. Actually, I had ChatGPT help me with this one. And this does the rotation around the pivot. So we give it a point. So that's going to be the vector we give it, the vertex, the pivot point, and then the rotation, which will be in radians. And so all we do now is when I give it a vector 3 like this, we're going to actually wrap that in a rotate around pivot. So rotate around the pivot, we give it the point. The pivot point is going to be vector 3, 0, 0, 0. And then the rotation is also a vector 0. And the rotation is around x. So we're going to go pi divided by 2, and that gives me 90 degrees. And then we multiply by the rotation. And then z will be 0. So pi divided by 2 is going to give me 90 degrees, or whatever that is in radians. And then we rotate it by 0 if our rotation is 0, 1, so 90 degrees if our rotation is 1, etc. All right, so let's try that with all of these. All right, and let's just rotate it. Well, let's see what we've got right now. Well, let me get, actually, yeah, so they're all pointing that way. Let's change them all to be 1. So they should be rotated to now point this way. Yep, that worked. Worked for some of them, that's weird. Oh, sorry, no, it only worked on the top, of course. So it only worked for that top face because that's the only one we've applied it to so far. So that's working. So let's go and finish applying this to all of them. All right, let's see if all the face is rotated properly. They did. Some of them are invisible because I think there's someone next door. You can see these ones here are all good. Let's fix this one, put them back to dirt. So we're only testing one now. Where did I put him? There he is. So you can see he's pointing to the left. If I make it a 2, he should rotate towards us. Good, so we've got a new kind of block. The only thing we've got to fix now is making sure if we put it next to something, the guy next door knows what to do. So right now what they're doing is they check if the one next door is air. So we're going to have something more complicated. Now, what I'm not going to do is I'm just going to move this one to here so we can practice a bit more. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so one thing I'm not going to do is tell it to draw this triangle, but not this hidden one behind here. What I'm going to say, if there's a ramp there, we're just going to be lazy. We're just going to draw that square. I don't want to get that that granular. And this one we'll draw. We might look to see this side, but probably not. We'll just say, hey, if there's a ramp, we'll still draw this. So we'll treat it as sort of like a transparent one. So the way we're going to do this is we'll just, for every kind of block, we will make a little function which returns whether it covers the adjacent wall, I guess. and that'll return a Boolean. So this one is a block. It definitely covers the adjacent walls. If it's an air, it does not. And for a ramp, you know, we might get fancy later on. So certain sides do, certain sides don't. For now, we'll just say nah. And so this can actually replace our is air. So here we'll just go, let's do it with the top first. Block covers adjacent wall. And then let's go to our chunk and make that one. And it's going to be very similar to our block is air. In fact, I'll go so far as to say it's exactly the same, except instead of returning block.getBlockType, we'll just return block.covers adjacent block, did I call it? Covers adjacent wall. Covers adjacent wall. Covers adjacent block, I think. Covers adjacent face. Just block. All right. Covers adjacent block. Covers adjacent block. Covers adjacent block. All right, so I'll put it on the top blocks. I'll put it on the top faces of our regular blocks. Let's see if we broke anything. So it's working in reverse. So you can see it didn't draw the ones where it should draw, and it did draw the ones it should. And that's because we're saying, hey, if the block top is covered, draw it, which is opposite. So it should be if not. And there we go. So that's working now. And this guy should, you can see the one underneath is still being drawn where he wasn't before. All right, let's do these sides. So it's actually going to be if not. And we'll probably still use air for something, or the air test for something. There'll be a lot of different cases where we're checking what's next door. And there we go. So it's not the most efficient because we're still drawing this one, we're still drawing this one. But I don't really want to get so granular as, see, I could, instead of just having this block covers it, instead of having this one just say true or false, I could have it return like a bunch of vectors saying it blocks this side and this side and this side and not this side. But I don't think it matters. Like the amount of extra triangles we'll be drawing, I don't think it's a huge amount at this point. Okay, so before we finish, so we can right now put these anywhere we like and they'll just work. Let me quickly show you my script for adding them after the fact. So if we wanted to have like, basically what we'll do is we'll do a check on every block. We'll check all the air blocks. And so we'll say this air block right here, this air block here, we'll check if this wall is dirt and this wall is not, then we'll put a ramp facing this direction. And same thing sort of here. So what it will do is it would check here and here and draw it this way. And then in my loop, it would also then check this one and maybe draw it that way. The complicated way would be if I actually had something which went in the corner and then we'd check all four and we'd have some sort of more complicated stuff. What we do is our chunk. So initially it gets all the block types from the world, which is generated from the noise. And what I'll do is at the end, we'll just go add a ramp. So we'll run a little script afterwards to add all the ramps. And if I'm adding anything else, we'll do it like this, func add ramps. Okay, so we've got our, check all the X's, all the Y's, all the Z's. We're checking if we're air. All right, so now we're only looking at air blocks. And so the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna check if the block above is air and the block below is dirt. So we're only looking at air and only the air where it's air above and dirt below. So only the air just above the dirt. So we've already got it down to that sort of pocket of air. And then I'm going to get all the surrounding blocks. And to do that, I've got another little function I'm going to use. So get the surrounding blocks, and we just go and get the block to the east, the block to the north, the block to the west, the block to the south. And we start east first because we're using that same rotation. So 0 is east, 1 is north, 2 is west, 3 is south. And so we've got those surrounding blocks here. And then what we do, basically we'll do one at a time. So if the number 2, so we're looking west, is dirt, and if the east is air, then we're going to do a ramp set to rotation 0. So my local get block, we're using it here, it's going out of range. So what I need to do is just make sure my local get block, if we use a non-local position, so if we go to less than 0 or more than 16, we'll look outside. So if we're less than 0 or bigger than the chunk size, then we'll return. I'm just telling it anything that's out of range, just treat it as air. Just put in a new air. So we'll treat that as like an error right now. So number 50 is going wrong. Oh, okay. So it's just because I forgot to put in a block type here. Sorry, that's my bad. When I was playing around, I labeled that slightly differently. So when I copied and pasted it, it was all wrong. And I didn't put in the set rotation yet, which I did have in my play around. Sorry, I'm got a bit out of oops, so let's put that in now. So set rotation, and let's make it the Pythonic way. So func, set rotation, new rotation, and that's going to be an integer, and we'll just go rotation equals rotation, and that's going to put that straight into here. Let's give that a go. Yeah, so now you can see in all these spots, it's put in the ramp. And so now we just have to do the other directions. All right, so I've got all my ramps going down. We just have to make sure these guys, when they're rotated, they're looking for the right direction. The problem is he's not drawing because he's actually looking this way. Because this one here, this vector has to be rotated. And we need to tell it the axis, so which is we're rotating on the y-axis. And then we just need to give it the angle, which is just this same angle here. All right, and I'm not going to use block as air. It's going to be that block covers adjacent wall. Whoops. All right, so let's fix all of these now. And we just add this to the end. Let's see if that fixed it. Did I have an error then? Okay, it's doing it the opposite because I forgot to put the not in. So now we're not checking if there is air, we're checking if there's a not something which blocks. Okay, it looks like it's not building it on this one side there, so I've done something wrong. Oh, you know what it is? It's just not doing it on the borders. Anyway, at this point we can add more blocks. If I wanted to go and add corner blocks and things like that, all I've got to do is make a new derivation of the ramp method, which just draws it slightly differently and looks at the corners differently. And yeah, that gives us somewhere to go. How did it work inside? Do we have any ramps in here? Yeah, we've got ramps in the underground ones as well. Anyway, for now, what I'm going to do in my world, I'm just going to make a little export var gen ramps. And then what we'll do is we will only make the ramps if I tell it to, so I can play around. So if get parent dot gen ramps, then we'll add the ramps. Yeah, so now we can go add the ramps, don't add the ramps. And so we can have a play around and see what we like and work it out from there. All right, thanks for sticking with me through that mind-numbing bit of boredom. I'll leave you guys to it. Have a good one.